from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hey everybody, once again to Talking Catholic, the official podcast of the Catholic community of South Jersey. I'm Pete Sanchez. Thank you so much for listening in, tuning in. As always, Mike Walsh, trusty compadre, is here. Michael, how are you?
I'm great. I'm very, very, very good. This is actually the first time we've been together in quite some time because I was away on a 10-day trip that I was very excited about, which went beautifully since the Eagles won. So I was very, very pleased.
That is, I felt it the other day.
My joy when I came walking through the door, bounding through the door with German chocolates in hand and German ornaments for the Star Herald staff.
That was the nicest thing you've ever done.
That
really.
It's a low bar because it's one of the few things I've ever done.
You felt like a new man. When you came back in from your vacation, I could tell it had relaxed you.
It really did. I have to say, I very rarely take good vacations. It was a really good vacation, so I was very, very happy to be away. Stopped by a couple of churches, went to one in France, one in Germany, went to one in England, as a matter of fact. So it was Protestant, but still, I went. It was okay. I didn't go to Mass or services, but I walked through it. It was nice.
What were the churches like in terms of the
old?
Old,
old, pretty.
I figured they were.
Yeah. No timber used anywhere. Nothing like any of. Well, you got to remember, I grew up in deep South Jersey. Everything to me was a mission church. I didn't realize churches could be beautiful until I went to St. Joe's and saw the cathedral in Philadelphia for the first time.
Oh, the Basilica?
Mm-hmm.
I just drove by it the other day. I was with friends and we passed up by that church. It's got beauty. And the one church I've been to outside the U.S. Was Notre Dame in Paris years ago, about 20-something years ago. That majesty, the whole Mass was in French. I couldn't understand a word as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
I probably still couldn't now,
sure.
But it just, I guess I need to go back. I want to appreciate it more.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Yes, I would agree. It's nice being able to go back when you go a little slower and really understand what you're looking at and appreciate everything that you saw. So it was really nice. I had a great vacation. And it brought me so much joy that I'm even more joyful that we get to announce a big event finally.
Oh my gosh, Mike.
You've been jonesing for this for months, and we can finally talk about it publicly.
I know. Well, we got the 100th podcast recording live at December 14th, Friday, at the Collegium Center for Faith and Culture. We had Brenda Quinn on, the director, about a month or so ago, and all the good stuff. And you and I still need a case of joint, Mike. I've been there. I don't think you have. I
haven't, although I did just see that there's an event coming up in a few weeks that I may try going to so I can see what it looks like in real life as it's being utilized.
Oh, is that the one with Father Tim?
Yeah.
Oh,
I figure
good.
I might try and stop by for that one.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think Brenda really talked it up when we had her on the podcast, and she made the offer to us to host the podcast there, and I think it'll be a good marriage. So I'm looking forward to that. So we've got a list of special invitees, some of our classic interviews from years past, who several of them have agreed to it. A couple that have conflicts that night that are trying to work things out. But we're going to try and get everybody there that we can. And basically we're looking at all the hosts of Talking Catholic or Talking Saints will be there. So we know it's going to be you and me. And our first respondent to the Eventbrite invite was Father Rob Sinatra. The second one was Lori Power, your co-host of Talking Saints, and then the third one was our Spanish language co-host, Marianela Nunez. Wonderful. So we got all the co-hosts in there, so we're very excited about that. And then we have a few more that we're locking in. So as people are guaranteed to be coming, we're going to start making that known, do a little promotion for it. But we do ask everyone to check out our social media and particularly our Facebook page, which has all the information related to the 100th live recording. It will be a free event. We are going to have food and beverage on hand. We very likely are going to have live music leading it off. So we're looking forward to that. But you do need to register for it. It'll cost nothing. It'll be a free registration. But feel free to look us up on Eventbrite Just do a search for Talking Catholic, and we'll be there. But the links to all of it are also on our social media pages, so just take a look at those, and we hope everyone will join us that evening. Should be nice.
Yeah, it's going to be a party during the season of Advent, getting ready for Christmas.
Yes.
So I wonder if Santa's going to be there, Mike.
No.
Should we get Santa? No?
Well, no, he'll be busy. He's got stuff to do up in the North Pole. You can't bring him down in December. That's like asking Father Romano to show up someplace on a Friday night in December. He's always busy with something. There's no way.
So are you saying Father Romano is Santa? I think that I've never seen him in the
thought that
same room.
before. That would explain a lot.
Him.
He's so jolly.
I know.
That's so weird.
I'm only saying that because it's true.
Well, that's because he's not. Well, that's about to make a comment that would be inappropriate. I'm not going to do that.
So,
well, Father Romano used to be heftier. And he's since lost quite a bit of weight. And because of that, I don't think he fits out the Santa suit any longer. So
no, maybe he gets pillows or something. I don't know.
Or it's the Christmas magic, and he gets very fat on. See, Sister Rosa thinks that might be the case.
Like the movie The Santa Claus, remember?
One of my favorite movies.
Scott Calvin,
yes.
Tim Allen, he couldn't lose weight, and his beard just kept growing.
That's right. Now we understand Father Romano. That's a possibility.
Tim Allen for Santa Claus.
There you go. Wow, for anyone who's not here right now, Father Romano is turning a few shades of red.
Just as red as the Santa Claus suit, Mike. It fits.
And the knife he'll be stabbing me with later. So anyway, that's on December 14th. We're very excited about it, so we want to make that our first news item of the day. But there's certainly a lot of other things going on in the diocese.
Well, speaking of Father Romano, with us to talk about vocations in a bit, there is going to be these days coming up on Sunday afternoons. They're priesthood discernment groups at Our Lady Peace Parish in Williamstown, 32 Carroll Avenue. The next one is going to be this Sunday, November 11th, on celibacy, chastity, charity, and cheerfulness. Each month, there's a different topic. So if you come out, if you're a junior or senior in high school, college student, or in the professional world, up to 39 years old, possibly feel a call to the priesthood, come on out. This group will help you discern and pray with others who are also considering the priesthood. To learn more about this, go to camdenpriest.org. It is again from 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. The Sundays, and they go all the way until April. The next one is this Sunday, November 11th, at Our Lady Peace in Williamstown. And then, Mike, we have in November 17th, and to our listeners, Assumption School at Our Lady Perpetual Help Parish, 146 South Pitney Road in Galloway, at 1 p.m. is going to have a talk on end-of-life decisions. We understand that these end-of-life decisions can be difficult. They can be a challenging time for families trying to figure out what to do. So just come to this event. Call 609-652-0008 for more information. Again, the talk on end-of-life decisions at Assumption School.
And since my family's gone through that recently, I will encourage people to actually spend some time thinking about that while everyone's still healthy, or maybe somebody in your family is starting to go downhill. It makes life a lot easier if you can make those decisions while everyone is still in good shape versus waiting to the very end when things are getting difficult and you have some hard choices to make. And there are a variety of choices, but from financial elements to who's going to be a part of what, to actually putting together final ceremonies. It may sound kind of cruel to bring it up while people are still in good health, but trust me, that's the time when you want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And so
I couldn't agree with you
my 2
more.
cents.
No, I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. So that's a very special 1 p.m. November 17th. Assumption School, 146 South Pitney Road in Galloway. Then coming up, Mike, December 2nd. I should just say coming. I don't know why I always say coming up, Mike, like I'm talking to you. I should just talk to the listeners.
That's okay. They know I'm here. That's okay if you just dress me.
Okay. Well, then, Mike, did you know that on December 2nd, Sunday, December 2nd, there is a Hispanic Diocesan celebration at Divine Mercy Parish in Vineland?
I did know that.
You did, 23 West Chestnut Avenue.
Yes, it's one of my favorite parishes in the diocese.
It is beautiful. It really
is. And one of the most energetic groups of people you ever meet in your life. Every time the bishop says a mass down there or there's an event down there, I am always thrilled to go. And on top of everything else, if there's food involved, the food is always exemplary.
Mike, we Hispanics know how to cook.
I know, and I know how to eat it, so it works in all facets.
So maybe I'll bring in, there's a great dish I've just started to make called picadillo.
Okay.
It's a Cuban dish that my grandmother made. It's amazing. I hope they have it at this Share the Journey campaign. Well, this is the diocesan celebration. It's for Share the Journey, which helps to bring together citizens and to understand the plight of migrants in the United States, kind of bring together in solidarity and understand the issues between them. This is going to be 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday, December 2nd. Bishop Sullivan will be celebrating the Mass. And also there'll be a special torch ceremony to prepare for the upcoming feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And as Mike said, there will be delicious food there, Mike.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Oh, and as always, you can find all these events on CamdenDiocese.org on the calendar on the right-hand side. And then coming up, also next month, Saturday, December 1st and Sunday, December 2nd, in Cherry Hill, the Christ Our Light Catholic Church will have a Fair Trade holiday sale. And Mike, do you know what Fair Trade is?
Yes, I do.
Well, yeah, then Fair Trade, it helps producers in developing countries get better trading conditions.
Yes.
Basically, all these materials are ensured that all the production of these materials are free of forced labor or poor working conditions. And normally, when I've gone to Fair Trade, it can be coffee or chocolate or some other items. It's just a good thing to support.
It's a very ethical way of making your purchasing decisions, going Fair Trade.
Wonderful way to say it is very ethical. And the crops to make these items are raised through sustainable methods, and nothing is genetically modified. Mm-hmm. Again, that's going to be Saturday, December 1st, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on sale, and Sunday, December 2nd, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. 402 Kings Highway North in Cherry Hill at Christ Our Light. Mike, speaking of the coming up on the 14th, we have the CFR sisters who are confirmed there, the Franciscan sisters. The Advent Day Reflection is going to be Saturday, December 8th, Feast of the Immaculate Conception, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at St. Michael's Church, 10 North Mississippi Avenue in Atlantic City. Mass, there will be talk by a Franciscan friar, lunch, Eucharistic adoration, confessions, a healing service, and benediction. For more information, call 609-343-1545. More information.
Are you going to try to make it this year?
I will be there.
Okay.
I actually have a commitment that night. A wonderful event. I believe it's in Vineland, but I will be in Atlantic City in the morning and early afternoon.
I'm going to try and make it as well, but it's my schedule is also a bit dodgy.
Oh, okay. Well, Mike, who do we have in the vault with us today?
I don't know. These people just sort of strolled in. I don't know what the deal is. It's the strangest thing.
One fall day, right? Yeah. They just kind of blew in. The wind blew them in.
This is where I'm very excited. These are two of our favorite guests, one returning and one who's first time, but I always enjoy seeing her. So we're going to have a very vocations-oriented conversation, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves. To my right is
Father Michael Romano,
who is also the
Director of Vocations for the Diocese of Camden.
And to my across from me,
Sister Rosa Maria, and I belong to the Congregation of Missionary Daughters of the Most Pure Virgin Mary.
And you are also the
principal of the Bishop Schad Regional School in Vineland.
Yes, and we are more than thrilled to have both of you with us today. We certainly had Father Romano on. Some would call it ad nauseum, but I think it's nice. But we try to twist his arm as often as we can to get him on and to talk vocations with us. And I will say that if you don't follow the Camden Priest social media pages, I strongly encourage it because it's great. And this week they've put out a ton of very great promotion for people who might be considering life as a priest, or might know people in their lives who they think might make good priests down the line. So I'm curious, Father, as you saw how things were developed for this week's marketing push, the films were put together. Did you have something in mind in particular that you were gunning for? Did you just have such great seminarians with such great stories, you just turned on the camera and went with it?
You give me a lot more credit than I deserve. The wonderful John Kalitz that works with me and with you. Well, he's supposed to work with me, but you don't let him to.
I really don't, because he's too useful.
So John Kalitz is really the brainchild behind almost everything that we do. And so this week is in the Catholic Church in the United States, National Vocations Awareness Week, where we're just asked in our parishes and in our dioceses to put out that word about the call to the priesthood and religious life, to put that out in a stronger way for the week, asking people to pray and giving the idea to the young people in our diocese. So the past 2 years, what we've done is we've recorded some of our seminarians over the summer, them sharing their vocation stories, a little bit about their stories, and then put those up on our social media posts to try just to have something each day during Vocation Awareness Week.
Mm-hmm. And they've really been quite nice, and giving John all the credit in the world, although honestly I think your seminarians have a lot to do with it. They are, you've year after year, it's a great crop of young men who are very authentic about their perspectives on why they want to become a priest, and sort of what led them to that, and why this is a good choice for people who might have that calling in their lives. Now, we've talked to you about your calling, and you've been very upfront about the fact that it took a couple of calls, right? It took a few people mentioning it.
A little fighting, on my end.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's normal. That's humanity, right?
It is, sure. Who wants to do this?
No. What? Wait, is that right?
I mean, when you're a young man, when you're like a teenage boy, it's not the normal course of action or plan that most teenage boys would have.
Yeah, but I mean, do you give a little bit of credit to the people in your life that sort of tapped you on the shoulder or tugged at your arm and said, "Have you considered this?"
I certainly do. I can think of Sister Michael, my third grade teacher. That she was the first person to ever say it to me, so I would always include her in any talk that I would give. She said it, and I was so young at that point that I would have never objected to the possibility. And then the first priest to say something to me was my pastor at the time, Monsignor Bacusa, and I was not happy with him. So, obviously I had grown a little bit by then. I was in high school, but he said something to me, and it forced me to deal with thoughts that were going on in my own mind at that time that I just didn't want to admit to people. And so he gave me the opportunity to discuss it and to talk about it. And then other people that invited me to consider the possibility of the priesthood as well when I was in high school.
I think that kind of a story, I think, lends itself to it being a good thing that you are also now the director of vocations, that as someone who sort of dealt with, uncertainty, whether this was the path that they should be on in the early times, like when they were first considering it. I'm curious, no one would call you an older priest at this point. You're still a very youthful looking,
but a babe,
yes, a young priest. But I mean, I have to imagine that the process you went through as a young seminarian versus the process the seminarians are going through now might have changed a bit or evolved a little bit. Have you been able to sort of tailor that process as the director of vocations in a way that might be reach young men a little bit more?
I would say, I in many ways, I tell guys in the discernment group that I feel like my path was not the normal path, and I'm making everything up as I go along a little bit because I never participated in a discernment group. I never talked about it to anybody until I finally realized that this was never going to go away, this idea of the priesthood, until I gave the seminary a shot. And so it was a learning experience in my first few years as vocation director to say, all right, now how do I find ways to reach out to young men that are considering it and that are going on a more normal path where they actually want to be able to discuss this with someone, not necessarily meaning they're going to go into the seminary, but an open environment where it was trustworthy, and then they could just ask certain questions. So, it was a learning experience for me at the beginning. I do think it's evolved over the past, I'm in my 8th year now, so over these 8 years, the process has evolved. One of the huge things is social media, internet. I mean, I grew up, I will make myself sound old at this point, but we did not have internet in the house until I went away to college. I did not have a cell phone until I was ordained a priest. So Facebook, all of these things, Netflix, the distractions, that didn't exist when I was in high school. And so we've had to adjust certainly some of the questions that we ask young men when they're applying to the seminary. They've had to be adapted to modern times.
Yeah.
One of the things that you talked about, with it's amazing. Before I ask this, I'm amazed at this CARA study. The Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate said that 72% of those ordained to the priesthood or solemnly professed within the last year, they talked about Eucharistic adoration as a prayer experience that kind of proved influential to their discernment. And you even talked about that when we had you the last time, how you were glad you listened. Maybe not through adoration, that's a way where you can listen. But is that something that you emphasize? I mean, just listening to the Lord and
finding quiet time. One of the things that I'll try to do in the discernment group with guys is, what's the bare minimum that you would expect of another person that you thought was considering the priesthood for their spiritual life, time with the Lord? Why don't you write those things down? And then can you hold yourself to that bare minimum? And being able to find time for quiet and silence is the only way really that we can hear the voice of the Lord, other than people. God can speak to us in different ways, speak through other people. But if we're going to hear him in the silence of our hearts, then we actually have to find the time to quiet down.
Yeah. And what you said, it's beautiful what you said. Again, getting back to what you talked about, you found that you were most fulfilled when you did what the Lord wanted you to do, which is to become a priest. And you can really only do that through listening. And you talked about the courage, trust, and confidence that you developed in all of that. I mean, that's so... But it seems, it is so much more noisy now than. I think we're of the same generation, Father. And I didn't have a cell phone probably till senior year of college. So it's just now these kids have them when they come out of the womb practically.
Yeah, there's so many more distractions.
You brought something up. We talked about it as we were going through the news items, and then you've mentioned it now twice as part of your conversation. The discernment groups. What do the young men get out of the discernment groups? Like, how do you formulate them, and how do the young men respond to them?
So normally I'll work with a guy for 2 years, give him 2 years to consider whether or not he wants to apply to the seminary. If at the end of 2 years he's just not ready to make a decision, then it's time for him to take a break, and then he could come back later. So I do a 2-year cycle with the discernment group. And the discernment group really is so often when a man, or same thing for a woman, is considering the possibility of the priesthood or the religious life, they feel like they're the only one that's thinking about it, because most of their peers are not. Yeah. Frankly, unfortunately, most of their peers aren't even going to church on the weekend. So, so they just feel so alone. The discernment group, I think, more than anything, is just an opportunity for a young man thinking about just the slightest possibility of the priesthood, to be able to get together with other young men that are thinking the same possibility. They're just not alone. And then they find out that they have the same fears, they have the same questions, they have the same anxieties, and that they're normal. And then all of a sudden, that breaks down a barrier, and they can ask the more important questions and really try to listen to the Lord and open themselves up to it in a deeper way, where it's just not these superficial questions and fears and anxieties that they have. So this year we'll go through a discernment book, and it's has conversational questions. We read a section and then talk about it. And so we'll do that this year. And then the opposite year, I normally will bring in other priests who can share their own vocation stories and their journey through the seminary. Frankly, just because I think that I get a little boring, and I'm with a guy for 2 years. How long do they want to listen to me? So, that way it's just 1 year of being just with me. The other year it's with me and some of the priests of the diocese.
Yeah. So, Sister, sort of we've talked with Father a couple of times about his path to the priesthood. What was your path towards religious life like? When did you sort of, what was your process, and when did you sort of know that this might be someplace you'd want to go?
Well, when I was 12 years old, I think that's when I had my first encounter with God, I would say. And I always compare that to, like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship where you first fall in love with somebody. And I believe that was at that age when I was 12. I was in 6th grade. And that, it was just a feeling, this is where God wants me. Of course, nobody was going to believe me at that age, that I was 100% sure that this was my way to go.
And what brought you to that point? How did you? Well,
I guess I was always involved with CCD. I always went from kindergarten to 6th grade to CCD program. And one of my catechists, I think, was very inspiring to me. And that's how I always wanted to be like her, like serving others, helping others, reaching out to others, and not just being like any kind of girl. You know? So when I did express that, actually I did express it to my 6th grade teacher. And she was like, I believe you'll be one day, And I was like, okay. So that was the only person I basically said something to. But then kept bothering me, and just kept bothering me all the time. Finally, I said something to my parents. And of course, they were like, yeah, right. You might be crazy. You have other things to think about it. You're just a little girl. You'll go to middle school, high school. You have boyfriends and you'll forget all about it. Yeah. I'm like, okay. So everything just was pushed back, okay. I kept going to middle school, and it was the end of the middle school, which it was 6 in Mexico is 6, 7, 8, and 9. So it was 9th grade when I finished middle school. And again, it was that calling, because I kept being part of the church. I went to youth groups and I participated in so many activities in church. But when I was 7 years old, actually, I started working, in a real job. So I guess I was just trying to reach out to other people in different ways. But what was so funny, though, when I was in middle school, which I shouldn't do, and I don't recommend this to do to anybody else, is I was usually the first one finishing my tests. When I had a test or whatever, I was usually the first one finishing. But I was also helping others, and passing on my
sister
tests.
Oh, my
She's admitted this.
Oh, wow.
So I guess that was a way for me to, help out to somebody at that level.
She's just turned cheating into a virtue.
I know, that's so sweet. Few people could do that. That's lovely.
So, of course, I was caught by my teachers doing that, and so they will keep me out of the classroom, and oh well.
And, of course, the irony is you're a principal now. The cheater becomes the principal. That's
exactly.
So nice.
Well, how many of your students are going to listen to this?
Yeah.
Sister Maria Rosa.
Yeah. So, that's what I did. And finally, when I finished middle school, I met one of the sisters, because we don't have a community in my hometown of the congregation that I belong to. Mm-hmm. But this sister will come to visit her family at my hometown, and that's how I met her. And having many conversations with her about how religious life was like, it got me very enthusiastic about it, and I said, I really want to be one of them. And I wasn't sure. I had no idea there were so many congregations, I just thought I just want to be one. I didn't know which one, to what congregation should I go. therefore, that summer when I finished middle school, I just went around like crazy, walking through my whole hometown and visiting knocking on the doors of all the convents that I knew there were. Just asking and see they will allow me the opportunity to have an experience with them, just to be the summer with them, just to see if that was my call. At that time, I was almost 16, and nobody will allow me. Nobody will give me the opportunity because I was too young. I had to be 18 in order to be part of that experience. So finally, I decided to write a letter to the congregation of this sister that went to my hometown, and asking them to give me the opportunity. And again, they will say no. But finally, I kept insisting, and they did allow me to go for a week. So I went to Aguascalientes for a week. And at the end of the week, I was like, this is my place.
Really?
This is where I belong to. And at that point, I asked for the admission. And they did admit me to the convent. But I was 16, so I had to go back and ask my parents if they will give me permission to. So when they came and picked me up, they asked me, about how the week went, and I said everything went fine. I really like it, and they saw it in my face, like I was the happiest girl in the world.
That's right.
And I said, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to be in my life. And so when we go home, we discuss about it. And, so we did, and it was only a matter of 2 weeks when I went back to the convent to stay.
Wow.
My parents gave me permission to. They signed the letter, and actually we went to visit Our Lady of San Juan, which is a very, big devotion to the family, just to thank her for my vocation. And none of my friends knew that I was in the convent for a week. I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So when I went back and I had my parents' permission and everything, that's when I told my friends. And
Were they supportive, or were they?
they were not.
No. Oh no.
And especially since I did have a boyfriend at the time.
Oh no, sister.
So, he found out too about it, and that was not a nice situation. But
I can be surprised, sure. Okay.
He couldn't compete with Jesus.
no, not at all, So I said that you always really go back to your first encounter, and that's what you remember. It keeps keeping you, going forward. And that was what I wanted to be. And at this point, I have 33 years already in religious life, and I am as happy as the first time. Yeah.
I'm curious, what was, we've reported a lot on the process for a seminarian to become a priest, but each of the religious orders is a little different, so it's a little tougher for us to report on one versus another. I'm curious, once you made the decision to join the convent, what was the process for becoming a professed sister?
Well, there is a 9-year process. First, you become a postulant. Well, now it's been changing. Now you become an aspirant, but before it was just a postulant, and then it was 1 year, and then 2 years of novitiate, and then after the 2 years you made your first vows. So for the first time you made like a vows for a year, like promises, the vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. And then you go to school as well. So I went to high school, and then I did some kind of apostolate as well. So I did my first vows like in 1990. Then after that, you renew your vows if you wish to, for 2 years, and then for 3 years. And then finally, after the 9 year, then you make the final decision. They give you 1 whole year to be away from the apostolate and your studies, so that way you can be just discerning if this is what really you want to do, the final decision.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's a conversation that Father Romano and I have had on the podcast several times, which is, sometimes as you're coming to the end or in the process, you kind of realize that, or you don't realize, but you're not sure if this is the place for you. And Father has said that even though it pains him as a director of vocations, he appreciates it when the seminarians sort of come to that realization before they take their vows.
Before they promise.
Yeah, before they become ordained. And but that's important. And I that's very impressive that you get a year away as part of the process to really make sure that this is something you want to do. I mean, it's a lifetime commitment. It's not something you want to enter into lightly. So that there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Exactly. Yeah. So they give us a whole year, and during that year we do 1 month retreat, silent retreat from the Jesuits. They direct us the whole month.
Oh, wow.
And that's like a whole just, discernment on the final decision, if we want to move forward or we just want to, go back.
This is now like the second time in 4 weeks we've heard about silent retreats, and the more I hear about it, the more I really wish somebody would make me take one, because I think I really appreciate that.
They're the best.
Yeah, I know. I got to really look into
are.
that. But Lori Power, actually, she was on a few weeks ago, and she commented that she was on a silent retreat recently, and it was really profound for her. It was really good. Okay, well, that's the problem with being in the communications field, is everyone's talking to me, so I never get silence.
Well, we'll take recommendations from you two after this if you have any. For where we can take a silent retreat, not together, Mike, but
No,
maybe one
not.
weekend and you the next week.
Yeah, sure. So, Sister, I'm curious. You've got 33 years under your belt now, and under your habit or whatever. I'm curious. As you run across young women, or young women may tap you on the shoulder and suggest, is this for me? Like, what can, say a young woman in South Jersey was interested in religious life? What recommendations would you have for them?
You know what? Nowadays, there's so many opportunities for them where they can really come and spend time in the convent just to see in real life situation what is it like, to really experience how religious life is. And we do have like girls that ask us, and I know it is difficult, and life, it has not been easy. There are obstacles and fears and everything else. But if a girl is asking, how do I do this? I will say the best way is, like Father Romano mentioned before, prayer is important. Asking questions, that will be the other thing. Sometimes they just don't ask. Being curious is a good thing to be, and if you don't ask, how are you going to find out? So don't be afraid to ask questions to any religious priest. Try to have a spiritual director, somebody that they trust, and to have that process of discernment. And also frequent the sacraments as well. That's the other thing that will give you some kind of wisdom, where to go. And not even ask so much about what is it that I want to do, but what is God's plan for me. Sometimes we want to do so many things, but how we ever ask, is this what really God wants for me? Yeah.
I'm often curious about that concept. The concept of what does God want for me. On the one hand, it seems rather simple in the sense that all I have to do is listen. But at the same time, it often feels rather heroic in the sense that that can't be an easy thing for someone who's sort of coming out of the secular world, to actually make that commitment to go, okay, I'm going to give everything over to God right now. Do you find that in both of your lives, or in the people that you've worked with who have considered vocations, that making sure that they were open to the call was difficult? Like what are some difficulties you've had to help people past?
I mean, I think making a commitment in general is heroic these days. So, unfortunately, too often when we talk about vocations, we limit it to priesthood and religious life. But the most important vocation really is to marriage. And we see how people struggle even to make the commitment to that. So there is a heroic sense to it. I think one of the big struggles that men and women have in trying to make the decision is that they feel that if they take the step of entering into the seminary or entering into the convent, that means that they've kind of sealed the deal. That's it. I'm definitely becoming a priest or a sister. And when you go on a date with someone, you're not sealing the deal that you're going to marry this person. So I think that trying to help them understand that this is just the next logical step to being able to figure this out, that if the thought keeps coming back to you, the only way that you really can figure this out is by giving it a shot. And entering the seminary or entering the convent, nobody is expecting that means you're going to become a priest or a sister. Mm-hmm. It means we're going to help you to try to figure this out in a healthier environment than just sitting at home and trying to just figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
Yes, I do agree with that. I always tell the girls, give yourself the opportunity to find out. Mm-hmm. Not only if your call is to be a religious, but to find out what your call is, because sometimes you don't even know. And this process will help you to really find out and be sure about what you want to do in life. Whether you want to get, married or be single or be a religious, whatever the path is for you, at least you are sure that when you have this process of discernment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Sister, you mentioned something earlier that I has been brought up a couple of times on the podcast by, I don't think any of the sisters we interviewed, but I think it's a couple of women who had discerned religious life and had chosen not to do it. But they had mentioned they sort of shopped around. They looked around for different orders. And did you say that you did the same?
Yes, I did.
Right. And what was it about this order, other than the fact that they said that you were at the age of 16 and you can come with us? I mean, was there something that particularly made you want to gravitate towards this order?
Well, you have to look at your own talents and abilities, especially because there's so many congregations that they either dedicate their lives to hospitals, nursing homes, education, just the catechesis, like pastoral ministries, missions, orphanages. I mean, there's so many ministries that they can do. So I wasn't really looking for the ministry itself. I was just looking for time to pray and spend time with God and helping others in any capacity, in any way I could. And like I said, many other orders didn't open the doors for me. I have so many ways that I could help. Like I wanted to help girls that were on the streets, and just help them to recover their lives and go back in again to society. But that was not what I was meant to be. And when I came to my congregation, it had like a very things of doing. Like we not only do education, but we also do pastoral ministries. We have orphanages. We do have missions. Mm-hmm. So it was like a broad, activities or ministries that we had. And of course, I was looking for sisters that were not just dressing as a normal person, like any other person.
Right.
I wanted to be different, and part of, this is what I am. And that's what I was looking to as well.
So that the habit was really something that spoke to you, like you wanted to be able to differentiate yourself from anyone else.
But yes, because I figure, like in any other profession, like a policeman, you can tell that's a policeman because of the uniform that they wear. Like a nurse or any other, profession, you distinguish yourself from them. So I just wanted to be that way too, to say, okay, I'm a sister and I'm married to God and I dedicated to His service, and this is who I am.
And you look the part. I like that. I certainly understand that completely.
And Sister, how long have you been How long have you been in the education field?
Well, I've been in education since 1992. Actually, I was in an orphanage, 350 boys only.
Wow.
And I was the principal, and I was also teaching religion to all of them back then.
That must have taken a lot of energy.
Yes.
And patience.
But it was wonderful. It was wonderful to work with these boys. And then that was back in Mexico. So I've been a principal, for here in the United States for 10 years already. But I've been a principal in Mexico as well, in middle schools, elementary, and...
Excellent.
That's it.
Well, actually, I before we left the shopping around conversation, I wanted to ask Father, we don't talk about it a lot from a seminarian perspective, since, we're working for the diocese, are usually very focused on our diocesan seminarians. But what about a young man who was interested in religious life? Like, if you find out, or if you have someone going through the program and they just realize at some point they don't have a diocesan mindset, they have some other mindset, like what can young men do to sort of go in that direction?
It's a good question. I have not dealt with too much of that. Maybe, over these years, one or two guys that felt like they were called not to diocesan priesthood, but to the religious life. It's not my experience, so it would certainly not be my skill set to be able to speak to them too much about it. Fortunately, each of the communities has their own vocation director, so you want to be able to try to lead them there. There's a great... I think the National Religious Vocation Directors have put together this thing called Vision Magazine, and you can actually go on to the website and do a vocational match sort of thing. So it's kind of like online dating.
Yeah.
And so you list your age. You got to answer all these questions. List your age, and this is for guys and girls. List your age, your interests, what you would be looking to do, and then they kind of will, through their database, send you a list of, well, these are the sorts of communities that you should be looking at, and these are the contacts, to be able to begin that process. My gut is that more often than not, young men with the priesthood are going to be attracted to what they've experienced. So guys if they're going to be called to the Jesuits, so often that's because they had an experience at a Jesuit high school or a Jesuit university. They liked that apostolate, and then they followed that call. Most men would experience parish priests. So if they were attracted to that, they go there. Every once in a while, they might feel this call to serve the poor in a particular way, and then search for a Franciscan community or something like that. So that would be kind of the way that I try to help. But I think it's so much more difficult for women or men that feel called to the religious life, because it's a discernment in two ways. First, am I called to be a sister, or am I called to be a priest? And then, to which community? And then the options are so large that a database like Vision, I do think, helps to at least narrow the search a little bit. Yeah.
As we're going through this vocation world, we don't have a religious brothers on, and we've only had one. We've had Brother Mickey on once before.
We did.
But and that's certainly another thing. Probably maybe we should do a podcast on sometime down the road, Pete, so we don't give anybody short shrift with possibilities. But although, Father, if you want to know more about that, listen to that Father or Brother Mickey episode, because he did a good job sort of explaining where his path was in terms of becoming a religious brother.
It was about a year ago.
Back
in December.
Yeah, and we talked art, so that's always nice too.
Yeah,
if you're truly interested in it. But yeah, it's sort of we've sort of come to this point of Vocations Week where it's always one of my favorite weeks, because it's an opportunity where we really get to talk to the young men who are very hopefully, prayerfully, going to become priests in our diocese, and it's always a beautiful opportunity. And Father, you've done a great job with the website, and you and John Kalitz, we'll give him credit too. Hopefully he won't listen to this. That you do a great job of telling those stories. And have you found that those stories have made an impact on future people who might be interested?
I do hear it. And one of the other things that we do is in the winter break, when the high schools, our Catholic high schools, come back into session, but the seminarians are not yet back in school, they go and we bring in sisters from the different communities in our diocese. Then they go into each of the religion classes and share their stories as well. It just changes, I think, people's understanding of where priests and sisters are actually coming from. That, I don't know what they think, but they come from families, they come from parishes, they come from our schools. They're from South Jersey, and that's where they have come from, and that's where they need to continue coming from. And so it just breaks down some of maybe the stereotypes that people put in their heads and say, oh, I can relate to that guy, or I can relate to that sister.
Yeah. I have to say, I had two experiences of that. Recently, the one, I did a story this week's paper on the guys, Carlo, Santa Teresa, and Paul Abriscato, who are in their pastoral years. And I visited Carlo, spent days with both of them. But Carlo, he during the pastoral year, he's teaching at Our Lady of Mount Carmel School in Berlin. And the principal there, Alice Malloy, talked about how when you're, kind of breaks down the barriers. These kids see him and ask questions. And then, funny enough, I go to Mass on Sunday, and this priest there, who I remember as a seminarian 20 years ago at my school, who I think it was on a pastoral year then. I don't even know if they had it, but he was serving at Queen of Heaven. And that was my first experience with a young guy, and he was just vibrant and energetic, and just good memories of him coming in every week. And I think it's beautiful to see. And Sister, with your experience now being a principal, have you had those conversations with your students at Bishop Schad? Have they come up to you?
Yes, actually we do like a panel as well, where we bring different vocations and have discussions with the students on what a vocation is, and then we have like a lay person, a deacon, a priest, and a sister, and they have the opportunity to ask them questions for each vocation, so that way they have like a whole vision, and it's not just religious life because I'm there as a principal, That's not my ambition, I would like for them to really become a sister, but at least just for them to understand that they're different lifestyles.
And I was going to say with Sister Rosa, they think she came from heaven, because if you ever go anywhere where her former students see her, she's not the tallest nun in the world, and we're lucky she doesn't get knocked over. They come running and they hug her, and she's certainly one of the most beloved principals in the diocese. I have witnessed that.
That is very true. That is very true. I'm curious. Pete had asked about that you do the panel, but as a religious sister, do you find that because you're in habit, particularly, and because you're in collar, do you find that people will come up to you and be rather direct about, I've always thought about becoming a sister. Can you tell me more? Do you get that?
I think that if at this point our congregation will accept widow ladies or single older ladies, there will be a lot in the congregation.
Really?
Because they kind of regret that they didn't make the decision before. So when they see us and they come, I always wanted to be a sister, but something happened in the way.
Yeah.
And they wish they could.
Is there an age limit for your order?
For us, yes, it is 30.
30?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now,
that's rare to see Father Romano be surprised.
As I'm getting older, 30 seems so young.
And with how many of your order are here in the diocese?
In the diocese, we have 2 communities: one in Bridgeton with 3 sisters, and one in Vineland with 4 sisters.
Okay.
So we've been in the diocese for 25 years.
That's what. Yeah. Happy 25th anniversary.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's Beautiful. And where were you born? I don't think
I was born in Mexico.
In Mexico.
And actually, when I came to the States in 1993, I didn't know any word in English, so I just knew how to say yes and no. That's all. So I went to school here in the United States for my teaching degree and my administration master's degree.
Oh, wow. Where did you get those from?
Washington State.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, wow. What part of Washington State?
Yakima.
Yakima, okay. I have family in Seattle.
Yeah,
That's
Yakima.
a beautiful part of the country.
Beautiful.
And the diocese in general actually has quite a few religious orders in it. Like we have, I mean, it's more than a handful that we have. Matter of fact, I'm kind of regretting that I didn't call Sister Mary McGarity to double check how many we have, but I know it's a lot.
We do have quite a few religious communities. I mean, they've always been the backbone of the church in the United States for sure. As the immigrant populations would come, they'd bring a priest, but there would always be women religious that would come, and they helped to start the hospitals, the schools that would to teach the immigrant population, help them to learn the faith, and so that's still the reality in our church here in New Jersey as well.
Yeah.
So many different charisms. I think is your order's charism education? Could be.
Well, the apostolate, yes, is 100%, education. But like I said before, we do other ministries. It's not just the education part of it.
That's been one of the things I've been happiest about with my son's school is that the sisters, the Franciscan sisters, are there, and they're great. They're funny, which is my number one thing with working with
especially
sisters.
my girlfriend, Sister Bianca.
Sister Bianca's the best. She yells at me better than anybody else. I love Sister Bianca. And
I love her rose glasses. I tell her all the time.
This is what I hear most from her. She's like, you tell Father Romano. You tell Father Romano that I said he's got to do whatever it is that he's got to do. I'm like, yes, sister, I will absolutely give this to him. I
I'm
say,
very
yes,
obedient.
Yes, as we all are. But that's true because I remember going to the same school. It was a different order at that time. It was Dominicans there at that time. But I remember having great relationships with the sisters who were my teachers, and they were phenomenal. I still remember Sister Bernadette. She was the best. She was from Hawaii. She was, and she looked like a young Hawaiian woman who was a nun. It was like it kind of blew your mind a little bit. It was like, but and then when I went to high school, I was very happy to have priests. It was the first time I had priests in school, and I've been very pleased that at my son's school that the priests do come on a regular basis, and enough that he's sort of created a relationship with them. And I'm curious, Father, do you find that you get? Do you find that people are more receptive when they have a personal relationship of some kind with a priest in their lives, like
for the possibility of a vocation?
Yeah.
I would say one of the benefits of having two assignments for me and working with the bishop is that I've had the opportunity to develop those relationships with some of these young men that are either in the seminary now or considering it, but over the past 5 years of working with the bishop. Actually, I'll just share this year of the first discernment group meeting, this young guy shows up, a junior in high school, and I couldn't believe that he was here for the discernment group and already a junior in high school, because he started becoming my pen pal when I was named vocation director, and he was only in 4th grade at that point.
Oh, wow.
But he would write letters to me about 3 or 4 times a year, and I would write back, and he would just ask questions about the priesthood. And now here he is, a junior in high school, and
wow,
and considering the priesthood still, which is pretty good all those years later, and my writing back didn't affect him negatively.
Turn
so
him off.
Good.
That's good.
But yeah, definitely having a relationship, because otherwise everything's such an unknown. But if you have a relationship with a priest or with a sister, it's less of that is unknown.
Yeah, I recommend it to people regularly. I have often on this podcast credited that my little gang of friends from my the mid-90s that I became friends with. 2 priests in the mix, and 2 former seminarians and a former sister in the group, and before she'd taken her final vows, and I give them all the credit in the world for my adult formation because of the friendships I had created with them, and we've had almost all of them on the podcast at this point. At some point, we're going to figure out how to get the Henrys on, but I haven't gotten Tom and Chris Henry on yet. But I often encourage people. I was like, become friends with the priests and sisters and invite them into your homes and have them over for dinner or in my case, drinks and cigars or whatever it works, whatever makes it work. But because, it's, Father, you sort of alluded to this before. I think when you put on the collar or when you put on the habit, some people forget the humanity of the priests and the sisters. And I've been blessed now to work here for 3 years, and the humanity is on display all the time, in the good and the bad. And I think having that kind of opportunity with people really has helped me as a lay Catholic, and I really encourage people to it may not be your parish priest. Maybe you don't have a great relationship with your parish priest, but there are lots of other parishes in the diocese, and there are priests doing great work and sisters everywhere, and invite them in. Make a priest your friend. Make a sister your friend, right? You can think of worse things, right, sister?
Exactly.
I mean, that's how one of the Father Rob Sinatra, he was one of the first that I remember kind of, wow, he's just a normal guy. He's not a normal guy, but he's
as normal as guys get.
Yeah. I remember,
he's as normal as he can be.
Exactly.
That would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, perfect.
He would appreciate that reference.
I remember he was just at St. Rose of Lima. There was a young adult ministry there, and he came as a visiting priest, and he talked about Star Wars, and he was just a pop culture geek like me with Star Trek, Star Wars, Marvel, and just so real. And it's just so
funny you made all those references and then referred to it as so real.
Well, I guess
couldn't be more unreal.
But okay, I guess I'm not unreal. I'm unreal too. But it's just, I couldn't agree with you more.
It's true.
There was guys who and Father Romano, you're keep up the good work. And just see you're one of the most approachable people I know. So
well, thanks. And get to know these sisters in Vineland and Bridgeton. That's been a blessing for me, just to get to know this community. Bishop Sullivan and I went last September, so September of 2017. We went down to Aguas Calientes and spent 5 days at the Mother House, and we're so lucky. 25 years, so here's to 25 more and some more sisters staying here and not Africa.
We love that. That's right. We want them here. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it, Father. You're off the hook for at least another 6 months. Well, maybe
praise the Lord.
No, you're coming back for iRace. So we're going to promote iRace.
We're going to change it to.
Did you want to promote iRace while you have it?
I thought you were going to. Father Adam Chahesky said we're going to change it to iMarathon for vocations this year.
Now that you've completed
Now that I've completed a marathon, so
that's right. The New York City Marathon.
I ran the New York City Marathon on Sunday, and I haven't fallen apart yet. No. So iRace for Vocations is March 31st, 2019.
Oh wow! Okay,
so it's very. Okay. It's in March, so you may need a parka, but we're gonna still have a great day, praying for vocations to the priesthood and religious life in Camden.
Do we have it?
That sounds so British. Parka.
Parka.
I mean, who says parka around here? I hear jacket. I don't hear parka. It's great.
Pete, I thought we were going to make it through an entire podcast where you didn't say something that blows my mind. But nope, you figured it out right at the end.
No, I've heard of a parka, but I think that's great. Maybe, let's bring that back into vernacular.
Pete,
parka.
I swear to God, it's never left.
I'm sorry.
It's not a weird word.
What did you say, Father? You've used it many times?
I think people use it.
Oh, really?
That is not a...
I'm with the wrong people then.
You had me blushing at the beginning, and now you got me blushing at the end. So here we go.
No, I think
this one's
great,
not on you, though.
I love that word parka. I haven't heard it enough.
You haven't used it enough?
All
right. Well, I'll bring in my parka, and then you can watch me wear a parka, because I have a parka. But anyway, thank you both for sticking with us. And Father, do you know where the location of iRace is going to be?
Washington Lake Park.
Okay, I'll be back.
Washington Township.
March 31st for iRace at Washington Lake Park, which is a great place. We love it there. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for listening. And Sister Rosa Maria, thank you very much for joining us. You are invited back anytime you'd like, with or without Father Romano. It's up to you. I know we can drag down the conversation, so it's up to you. But if you ever want to have us down, that's great. Pete and I love being on the road to interview with people. So if there's ever a need for us to come down,
they make great food.
Wonderful.
And,
yes.
And remember, we also our Spanish language co-host has not been getting enough work lately. So if you ever want us to come down and do a Spanish language recording, we'll bring Marianella or replace me. And
wonderful.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
Anyway.
All right. Thank
Pete,
you.
You can make it on Friday, December 14th, 7 p.m. at the Collegium.
Yes, Father
Both
Romano.
of you. It'll be it'll be a fun time. It'll be a party.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.